Καλωσορίζουμε την κυρία Ταλ Χάινριχ. Είναι η εκπρόσωπος του Ισραηλινού πρωθυπουργού Μπενιαμίν Νετανιάχου και θα μας πει ακριβώς ποια είναι η κατάσταση που συμβαίνει εκεί. Θα την καλησπερίσουμε και βέβαια θα το κάνουμε αυτό στα αγγλικά. Ms. Heinrich, thank you very much for being with us. You actually have some serious trouble going on over there. We also heard Mr. Blinken visiting Israel earlier and the Prime Minister also having a press conference with him. U.S. stands on your side. So what's next? How do you think this is going to escalate? What kind of measures will the U.S. take in order to support you?
Well, first, we are very grateful from the support that we have been receiving from the United States so far, and it is very reassuring to the Israeli people to hear what Secretary Blinken said, what President Biden has said over the last days, that the United States stands by Israel now and always. It is very important to hear from the American people, coming from the White House, that Israel has the right to defend itself, full stop, and this is exactly what we are doing. Our goals in this operation are very, very clear. First, we want to make sure that Israeli territory is secured, that a border fence around Gaza is secured, especially after what we went through on Bloody Saturday, the massacre that has taken place by Hamas savages.
So in what way do you think that the U.S. will actually support the Israeli army right now?
Well, I cannot comment on military specifics, but I can tell you that we are receiving large support from the United States. The Secretary talked about the replenishment of the Iron Dome missile defense system. U.S. Congress people were here in Israel over the past days, and there is unequivocal and overwhelming support for the Israeli people, for the Israeli military in this war, because as the Prime Minister said, this is a war of the civilized world represented by Israel here against Hamas's savagery. There is this is a time of moral clarity. You heard this sentence from Secretary Blinken and from the Prime Minister today, and it is very clear where the civilized world is standing.
We heard the U.S. President, Mr. Biden, saying that there have been beheaded toddlers, beheaded babies. Can you actually confirm that? Because there's been some rumors that have not been confirmed yet.
So here's what I can tell you. Hamas has carried out many kind of ISIS-style atrocities. You heard Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that among these atrocities were indeed also cases of beheadings. I cannot make any further comment on this issue. There were families who were burned. There were parents who were murdered in front of their children. There were children murdered in front of their parents. There were people who were abducted into the Gaza Strip, including a Holocaust survivor. These are ISIS-style atrocities. Secretary Blinken has also referred to them as such. And as our Prime Minister said, Hamas has to be dealt, just like the international community, the international coalition to defeat ISIS dealt with this terror organization.
Are you actually concerned that this conflict may actually turn out to be a regional conflict with other players being involved in it, like Iran, Damascus, Syria, or Lebanon, Hezbollah?
Well, as you know, the state of Israel has many adversaries. Iran among them, and on the northern front, you mentioned Hezbollah, that is also sponsored by Iran. Over 93% of Hamas's budget, by the way, comes from Iran. So this is why when I talk about Hamas in terms of ISIS, I tend to call them ISIS on steroids, because in that case, they have a state standing behind them. We have warned all our enemies, and also President Biden said the same. Simply do not try Israel, because we will defend our country, we will defend our territory, we will defend our people, and this is what we're doing. By the end of this military campaign, our enemies, Hamas, and enemies outside our borders alike will know that they will pay a heavy price if they try to hurt us. They will pay a very heavy price, and our victory will be remembered for generations to come.
The problem, though, is that you have suffered some serious losses, so have the Palestinian people. My question is, what will happen to those refugees that would like to actually find a way out towards Egypt? Because there have been reports that there have been heavy bombing of the corridor towards Egypt. Will you allow them to get out of the enclave?
So we say very clearly to the Palestinian people in Gaza, move away from these areas where Hamas is operating from. There are Hamas targets that the IDF is targeting in Gaza. The Palestinians know where these targets are, Hamas depots, strongholds. We are operating in these areas. We're calling on them to move out.
Allow me to say something, though, because Gaza is a very narrow area, so it's overly crowded. So is there any more space for these Palestinians to actually leave the place where Hamas is operating?
Everything that is happening in Gaza is Hamas's responsibility. This is how we view it. And we have been very clear in our calling for the Palestinian people to move out of these areas. They know what areas we're talking about. We know that they know what areas we're talking about. We have been very clear about that.
So if there's an ultimatum, what would that be? Because you obviously have women, children on the Palestinian side as well. What is the ultimatum? Is there one?
As I said, everything that happens in Gaza is the responsibility of Hamas. Hamas has turned Gaza into a terror base. This is the new ISIS caliphate, if you will. And just like ISIS was defeated, Hamas will be defeated. You know, the unfortunate part, though, is that Hamas is more than just a military wing. It's also an ideology. And the Prime Minister was also very clear in that respect that any country that is harboring Hamas terrorists should be sanctioned. This is also one thing that our Prime Minister said today in his shared statement with Secretary Blinken, and this is something that I wanted to repeat today.
Ms. Heinrich, provided that we have other players like Iran, for example, being involved in this, what will be the escalation in terms of Israel or even the US? Can you foresee what is going to happen?
Well, as I said before, we will come out of this victorious. Our enemies will know that they should not challenge us. They should not dare to act as Hamas did on Saturday. This war was unprovoked. We didn't want it. We didn't start it, but we will prevail.
Is even a nuclear solution a solution to this problem if this happens?
Well, first,
the use of nuclear weapons, could that be an option?
We're not talking about that right now. We know what we're doing. We're continuing in the military operation. By the end of this campaign, Hamas will have nor the military capability, neither the military capability nor the motivation to hurt us as they did. I guarantee you that.